All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. We're going to explore the epic rise, the really tragic fall, and honestly, the incredible resurrection of an ancient academic giant. This is a story that literally bridges centuries of history, lost knowledge, and modern ambition. Welcome to the remarkable tale of Nalanda University.
Let's kick things off by challenging some assumptions. If I were to ask you right here, right now, to name the world's first great university, where does your mind immediately jump? What geography? What century? Well, for most of us, our historical compass points squarely toward Europe.
Right. Our minds naturally jump to these iconic European institutions when we talk about the birth of the modern university. You've got the University of Bologna in Italy, established around the 10th or 11th century. Then Oxford emerges in the 12th century, followed closely by Cambridge in the 13th. These are the titans of academia that usually dominate our history books.
But here's a truly staggering fact. An international university of a far, far greater magnitude existed in India an astonishing 700 years before Bologna was even a thought. Think about that. 7 centuries of advanced, organized, higher global education thriving while Europe was still deep in the early Middle Ages. No way, right? But it's true.
Part 1, the ancient mega university.
This place wasn't just some local school. It was an absolute powerhouse of ancient thought and innovation. It thrived from the 5th century onwards, rooted in a deeply established Buddhist tradition. And the sheer physical magnitude, staggering. The campus spanned an incredible 10 kilometers. Try to visualize that for a second. A 10-kilometer footprint of dedicated learning space built over 1,500 years ago. It was essentially an entire city dedicated strictly to the pursuit of knowledge. And within that sprawling 10-kilometer radius, every single day there was just this massive hustle and bustle. The air was thick with the energy of people attending hundreds of different classes. And the curriculum was breathtakingly diverse. They taught things like Chikitsa Vidya, which was an advanced medical education. Students were also rigorously studying logic, astronomy, astrology, you name it. It was a totally comprehensive academic ecosystem. To really understand the architectural majesty of this place, we just have to look at the historical descriptions left behind by Xuanzang. He was a famous Chinese scholar and traveler. His travelogues describe a massive 9-story astronomical observatory, these sprawling 4-story monasteries, huge terraces, and a magnificent library that housed the world's wisdom. It really paints a picture of an advanced civilization deeply, deeply committed to its intellectual infrastructure.
So you might be wondering, who is actually walking these incredible halls? Well, the numbers are just astounding. Nalanda boasted a faculty of 1,500 prominent teachers, and they were teaching a massive international student body that journeyed from places like Korea, China, Japan, and beyond. It was the absolute epitome of culture, drawing the most brilliant minds from all over Asia into this massive, globally connected hub of learning. Part 2, a tragic 800-year erasure. But how does a 10-kilometer mega university with thousands of international scholars just simply vanish? The loss was profound. When Nalanda was violently destroyed, people noted that India had essentially lost its soul, and this ancient academic heartbeat was suddenly silenced. Great and incredibly valuable books, manuscripts detailing essential aspects of life, medicine, the cosmos, they were completely destroyed. The physical devastation was absolute, and that's fully backed up by the archaeological proof we have today.
Crucially, though, this wasn't just a physical destruction of brick and mortar. It triggered a massive cultural void. First came the destruction of the campus and that magnificent library. That directly contributed to the decline of Buddhism within India. And then, finally, the most tragic step. People simply forgot. They forgot about Nalanda University, and they even largely forgot about Buddha in that specific region. It was a complete, widespread cultural amnesia.
This devastating event led to an 800-year gap, 8 centuries of continuous heavy silence. The ruins of the greatest university in the world were literally buried under the earth, forgotten to time. Local villagers eventually settled directly on top of the hidden ancient ruins, completely unaware of the absolute majesty buried right beneath their feet.
Part 3, unearthing the lost campus. But as it turns out, history wasn't finished with Nalanda. The investigative effort to dig this university out from beneath those settled villages, it reads like a grand archaeological detective story. Getting this forgotten giant back into the light was a massive, multi-generational effort.
It actually started way back in 1811, when Francis Buchanan Hamilton first saw the remains, though, funnily enough, he didn't even know it was a university at the time. It wasn't until 1872, guided by those ancient travelogues of Xuanzang, that Alexander Cunningham began the first focused excavations. Then, from 1915 to 1937, the massive temple and monastic complex was finally revealed. Further digs in the 70s and 80s cemented the fact. This was the biggest ever excavated university in the whole world.
And what they found beneath the dirt was breathtaking. It threw remarkable light on Nalanda's forgotten history. They discovered intricate inscriptions from kings detailing donations, and these really beautiful sculptures of Lord Buddha in various forms. Thanks to renowned archaeologist Percy Brown, we got conjectural drawings of the stunning Temple 3. But perhaps most incredibly, they found that some rare manuscripts had actually survived because they'd been taken to Tibet and translated. In fact, some of these manuscripts were later graciously donated back by His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Part 4, Rise of the Phoenix. Which brings us to probably the most inspiring chapter of this explainer. After 800 years of education, followed by 800 years of darkness, Nalanda is rising again. It's actively being repurposed and redefined for today's multipolar world. It's just amazing to see how Nalanda is building a bridge across centuries. There's a really beautiful symmetry here, actually. The ancient university drew Pan-Asian students with its vast 5th century Buddhist tradition. Today, the new campus, which was established in 2017, boasts students from 31 different countries with a distinctly modern, multipolar focus. So the modern campus acts as a true cultural confluence, perfectly echoing its ancient global roots.
Now, re-establishing a university of the future from the ashes of the past is a massive, incredibly complex undertaking. Yet the modern facilities are nearly completely ready. Construction kicked off in 2017, and today over 80 structures, that includes academic blocks, administrative wings, and auditoriums, they are fully operational, and the residential spaces are already 70% completed. The physical resurrection is, for all intents and purposes, practically realized. I absolutely love this quote because it hits the nail on the head and perfectly summarizes the rebirth of Nalanda. Almost like a phoenix, out of those ashes, now the new university will be coming, and that would give the message of peace and nonviolence to the entire globe. It's not just about constructing new buildings, right? It's a physical and spiritual resurrection. It's carrying ancient wisdom into the present moment, jumping right back into the global fray to project a vital message of peace and nonviolence to the entire world.
It's a really staggering thought to leave you with at the end of this explainer. If we can unearth an academic giant that was buried and forgotten for 800 years and literally breathe life back into its halls, how will this resurrected hub of knowledge shape the minds of tomorrow? It shows us that true knowledge, no matter how deeply buried it gets, can never be permanently erased. Thanks so much for joining me to explore the incredible story of Nalanda University.